Wow, Barry, I guess Layla was right, Darren says. After I finished telling him about one of my adventures, you have been holding out on us this whole time. How many more of these wild stories do you still have anyway? I wouldn't really call any of them wild, I tell him. Most of the stuff I told you about was just odd jobs that I did here and there so that I could continue to fund my research for becoming a mage. These are not exactly the kind of things that people would write books about, like any of any of your achievements, for instance. Well, maybe they should write books about them, Darren says. This is some exciting stuff. I'm serious. You really had me on the edge of the seat with some of these stories. I swear I have no idea if all these people you've met in your life were crazy before they met you, if they were slowly turned insane after spending too much time with you. Well, it's amazing how many like-minded people you've encountered on your path until now. I think the one I'm most surprised of has to be Brynhorn. He always seemed like a man with good head on his shoulders. How in the gods' names did you manage to rope him into this madness? Hey, I say, Brynhorn has spent years upon years winning every single Sage tournament for the Western continent, just to get a chance to challenge Azarius for the Sage title again and again, without beating him even once. And yet he still does it every year. If that's not pure madness, then I don't know what is. But yeah, now that I think about it, maybe Brynhorn and I are pretty like-minded after all. I'm honestly surprised that we haven't run into him so far. Would like it extremely unlikely for him to not be here, especially knowing that Azarius joined this tournament. Maybe he got teleported to the other end of the continent or something. Have you not kept in contact with him at all since you left? Darren says, if you at least had the frequency of his transceiver, we could try to call him. Nah, so it's been years since I last talked to him. I don't even know if he'd still be using the same transceiver or not. I thought about sending him a letter once or twice, but I always kind of put it off for later, another time, telling myself that I'd rather give him the good news of having found a way to become a mage rather than contacting him after such a long time just to tell him of my failure. I wonder how he would react if he saw me casting magic. I'm sure he would be proud, Darren says. Maybe he'd even find some more motivation for working together, working harder for his own goal, an unachievable goal. If something as impossible as a regular person casting magic can be done, then beating Azarius should seem like a piece of cake in comparison. I suppose that is true. Well, I guess you could put it that way, I say. Speaking of impossible goals, Darren says, have you given any more thought to Meredith's request of us helping her kill Aiden? I don't know, I say. Is there really anything to think about? I'd say it's in our best interest to talk about this as little as possible. As long as we haven't reached a conclusion, Aiden is a lot less likely to come looking for a fight with us. But have you considered it though? Darren says apprehensively. Sure, I guess, I say, at least on a theoretical level. Why do you ask? This is going to sound a little weird coming from me, Darren says, but I'm not sure how comfortable I'd feel about killing Aiden at this point, especially after he helped me during the God of Time's trial. You do realize that Aiden from this world has no memories of helping you, right? I say yes, but it was still the same person, Darren says. The Aiden from our world would have reacted the same way too. If you were put in the same situation, that's why I'm conflicted about this whole thing. He asked me to prove him wrong, Barry. I think he wants the same thing from you. How can I murder him cold blood, knowing that deep down he might regret what he's done, and he actually wants us to do the impossible and make him believe in humanity again? That's what I'm trying to do. You know, already trying to say, I'd say it's a little late for regrets. Wow, you're right. That does sound weird coming from you. Actually, now that I think about it, suppose I'm a little conflicted too. I suppose I'm a little conflicted too, I suppose. There is no guarantee that Aiden can change his mind and return to the way he used to be when he first founded the civilization of Arathia. He's certainly shown signs that he wants to at least give us a chance to succeed where he couldn't. Yes, exactly, Darren says. And if he were to truly change back to the old Aiden, can you imagine how much potential for good there could be? Think of how many people he could help with all that power. He might, I say. Let's not forget that Aiden admitted himself that his actions would cause the destruction of the Varathian cities. Almost all the kings are currently plotting to assassinate him, likely for this very reason. So even in the best case scenario, I doubt that any of these cities would welcome him with open arms if he said that he wanted to resume his position as creator. But Aiden would only be destroying the cities because of his inevitable upcoming fight against Tyrath, right? Darren says, in that case, don't you think it would be a better idea to stop Tyrath rather than Aiden? Frankly, I say, after what we have found out from Meredith, I'm beginning to think that the two old enemies from the prophecy might actually be Aiden and Lasethi instead of Aiden and Tyrath like we originally thought. I know that he technically took their side during the Still Winter, according to Melindra, but Meredith clearly does not see things that way, and she's obviously preparing for some kind of big showdown with Aiden at the end of this tournament. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was their fight instead. if it was their fight instead that triggered the destruction of the Varathian cities. I thought that it was the Magium itself that sent this prophecy to us. Darren says, why would it send a prophecy about this conflict at the same time actively take the side of one of the opposing factions to help create the conflict in the first place? I thought this was the Magium itself that sent this prophecy to us. Darren says, why would it send a prophecy about this conflict at the same time actively try to side one of the factions? I'm guessing it's because the different parts of Magium have different goals, and it's spread out through multiple parallel universes or whatever. According to Araka, the Magium itself and the Magium fragments are separate entities. I say the particular fragment seems to have been using the Magium node inside the Lessethi base to communicate with Meredith and make these plans for quite some times, which makes me think that this recent prophecy is not actually its main concern. Its real purpose is to kill Aiden. I wonder if this isn't by any chance the same Magium fragment that gave Aiden the secret knowledge that he needed to defeat Araka, and now decided that he's been using that knowledge for far too long and needs to be removed from the equation. This is all really confusing to me, Darren says. If the Magium fragment really wants Aiden dead, why doesn't it just erase him? Why does it need us or the Lessethi to do the job in its place? I can't say that I'm an expert on this myself, but these fragments seem to have certain limitations when interacting with our world, I say. Thinking back, the only times that a Magium fragment was about to erase me happened either inside the Magium realm or shortly after the blue crystals awakened. The very first time we were already inside the Magium realm. When we were at the more recent time, we were pulled inside the realm, but only because we were standing close to the node. So it's possible that the node doesn't allow the fragment to interact with our world all that much. Also, if I remember correctly, the Magium fragment that was looking for Araka from the past said that it was going to undo this whole universe from its seams just to find out where Araka was hiding. If it needs to do something so drastic just for finding one person, there is also a possibility that these fragments are not capable of pinpointing precision attacks outside of their realm, although I might be theorizing a little too much based on so few facts. You have definitely lost me, Barry, Darren says. I know you're trying to make this sound less confusing, but all this Magium fragments node stuff is going way over my head. I can only hope that we will have as little interaction as possible with all of them in the future, so I won't actually need to understand any of this. All I want from the Magium is to use the node to get the knowledge I require from it, and that's it. No other complications. No other complications aside from actually getting access to one of the nodes, you mean, I say. The tournament organizers are clearly not planning to let us use one even if we win, so our only choices will be to either take Meredith's deal or seize control of another node and obtain the tools needed to decipher the knowledge from it. Still, this is a much better situation for us than the one we were in a week ago. At least if we now we know that the prices we were looking for exist. There is a way to use it as long as we know it can be used. We'll find some way to access it with or without Meredith's help. I like your spirit, Darren says. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe we should use Araka or Illuna if they know the location of any other Magium nodes. They definitely seem like they interacted with at least one of them before, so there has to be some way to get to them. I'm guessing she interacted with the one in the Golden Foxes area, probably. Absolutely, I say. We'll ask them first thing in the morning. And with that said, I think it might be time to go wake up Kate and Diane so they can begin the second night shift. I could use some sleep. Alright then, Darren says. Let's gather up these playing cards first, then we can go. After we put all the cards back in the deck, we wake up Kate and Diane. We go directly to our tents so we can at least get a few hours of uninterrupted sleep for the night. The first morning, we are awakened by the first very distinct smell of roasted verin, which would normally be a delicacy served only to royalties, but flour seems to have no trouble conjuring in large quantities without expending too much energy. As much as most of us are slowly getting lured towards flour by the appetizing aroma, we heard Darren having a normal conversation with his wife. I don't know where the normal word came from, it's nowhere written. Having a conversation with his wife Sophie on his transceiver while packing his tent. They've been talking at least 3 times per day since he managed to finally contact her, which is nice to see since it's clear how much they've missed each other. What's more, Sophie has also blended rather well with our group. She has already made some plans to join us on our journeys after we're done with the tournament. Aside from Darren's wife, we have also been in contact with Melindra and with Layla's father, who both have transceivers from Darren and can call us whenever they like. Unfortunately, since Layla can't send her text through the transceiver, her father needs to read them out loud for us, which makes our discussions a little awkward, but at least we can communicate with her. so I can't complain. As for Melinda, Flower tends to call her more than 10 times a day. Oh, that's funny. So in a way, it's like she never left.